collaborative.
Did we just lose her?
We did.
Okay, I'm gonna wait a minute. Hopefully she'll be back in a second.
Okay, or else we can do a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us this morning. We are excited to be here to discuss our new partnership between the Holland Museum and Hope College. I am Susan Ippery Brown. I am the Director of Explore Hope Academic Outreach at Hope College, as well as an Assistant Professor of Engineering Instruction. I'm also a member of the Board of Trustees for the museum.
And I am Michelle Stepien, and I am the Education and Community Programs Manager here at the Holland Museum. So we thank you also from the Holland Museum for having us today. And I just want to mention where we are is that we are actually in the museum in the Focus Gallery, which currently on display is the United for Progress, the Lau Story exhibition, which we are going to be talking a little bit about today because it has a lot to do with the partnership that we are doing. So
Exactly. So we are going to get started with our presentation here. So the partnership that we have put together is really to say, how can two organizations that have very shared purpose look at putting together a very dedicated project that can share our strengths, and from the educational side, really look at how do we get students to be immersed in a community project? How do we get them to be not just observing a project and seeing how these community partnerships work, but actually engaging in it and be contributing their pieces as well. And we also want to then put together an example of how the two organizations with our shared goals can bring some shared resources together to move our mutual projects forward.
So this really has come together through our partnership working together, but also we can't do this without the students. We really need them to participate. We want them to gain some insight into how interdisciplinary teams work when they get out into the real world. That is how things happen. So we're trying to get them some additional experience with doing that. But this really was a great opportunity for the Holland Museum because this kind of a partnership really fits into the museum's strategic plan and the museum's desire to extend our educational reach into the community through community partnerships and relationships. So most of the time, our community partnerships really help us create exhibits and programs, and we're of course focused on interpreting history, our art, and obviously our community culture. But this was an opportunity for us to work in a new direction where we're impacting the college audience directly, which is always an audience we're interested in, but one that's very difficult to reach. So we can impact them directly through curriculum design and then of course direct interaction. And you can see the picture on the screen that that is Wendy Geringer, who is our exhibits coordinator. Wendy and I actually went into the classroom at Hope College last week. So that's a picture of Wendy speaking to the students. So it's really a great opportunity for us to really interact with them directly.
So on the surface, our goal for the project is to produce digital exhibits that will capture the wonderful exhibit that's here in the gallery. And that will both help maintain the artifacts that are here as a presence out in the community, and also see what is the next steps for working with LAUB and documenting their history. But digging deeper, it's really to look at the student outcomes as well and their community awareness. So both their growth in terms of understanding, how do they look at their community? How do they see the range of different people? How do they see how in an organization that may not be seen on the surface as, oh, we hear Holland, we think of certain community members. How do they learn to celebrate that? How do they learn to embrace that? And we're
Uh-oh, Susan, You're frozen. I'm not hearing you and it's not advancing. Well, wait a minute. I'm wondering if wherever you are in the museum, the connection is not as quick as it could be. So I don't know if you're like in a basement or a closed area, but looks like they left and are going to try signing back in. So let's be patient. Wait a minute. You were okay when we did a test earlier, but something went wrong. So we'll wait for them to sign back in. Thanks for your patience, everybody. It has not been a week without technical difficulties.
Looks like Donna has a great place to sit.
Yeah, that's got to be the, would that be Holland Channel or that's Grand Haven, I think. Maybe.
You frightened me.
Uh-oh, why?
Well, I'm at home lounging on my couch with COVID and I thought I didn't expect. But I see you're looking at my picture of St. Joe.
Yeah, oh, St. Joe, that's what it is. Oh, I'm so sorry. How are you feeling overall?
Just tired, but yeah, okay. Getting over it.
You are the second Haas person I've talked to this week that has it, in spite of being vaccinated. I assume you probably are too, but
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand, certain institutions just aren't requiring masks on everyone, even if you're vaccinated. I think that's where I got it. It's my own fault, but
oh, I'm sorry.
yeah. So anyway, I'm
So-
gonna on whatever I do, but
Okay, I hope you feel better soon.
I appreciate it. I'm starting to enjoy the lecture. I hope it continues.
Good, yeah, me too.
Okay.
Quick check my email, make sure they're, oh, here we go, good.
Okay, we are back.
Great,
The
thank you.
museum's internet just suddenly completely crashed, so we are on my phone's hotspot right.
Uh-oh. Might have just lost you again.
So we were discussing our students and where our goals are for our students. As I mentioned, we want them to go deeper than just learning how to put together a digital exhibit, which has a lot of aspects to it as they dig into curation and artifacts selection, how they tell that story. But they're really starting to see both the cultural and how do you look at a community culturally, but then how do you put the project together? And I think when we left there, we were talking about how we are very explicitly talking to them about what the museum partners bring to the table, what the college brings to the table. We're bringing digital librarians in, we're reaching out to other people in the community. And maybe more so than I might do on other student projects, really speaking that out loud so they see how the partnership becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Additionally, we have this unique opportunity that while there is a 6-month exhibit here going on, how do we capture that? How do we work together and do something unique while the exhibit is actually here and capture it in a digital way? I don't want to take away from them putting together the digital artifacts as well. We are learning a lot. I think I have both hats on as both a trustee for the museum as well as leading the class when we talk about how we can further digitize different programs here for the exhibit. And so we're working with folks are really more experts in what is the right software, how do you categorize, put all kind of metadata and other library references into our digital exhibit so that it's something that has much more of a longer life beyond this project.
So in addition, of course, to the goals for the students, for what we hope that they will get out of this, you know, we as a museum and as the college, as partners, also have goals, things that we would like to achieve through this project. And first, of course, thinking about how the museum, again, can continue to connect and reflect our community and, again, extend our reach into the community through education. So we always want to bring experiences and information and hopefully enjoyment to our audiences. We really want these students to have direct experience in creating a learner-centered or audience-focused exhibition, which will hopefully move visitors away from just passive viewing to active learning. So we hope that that digital exhibit will extend that educational purpose. Museums now changing, we're constantly changing, but are less about being seen as the expert voice than as a facilitator of dialogues, welcoming a wide range of voices and ideas. And so this project is one way that we can continue to do that. The college, of course, is looking to prepare students for lifelong learning, and we hope and to understand that it's important once they leave the classroom to contribute to the community around them. So we also hope that they will see us, the museum, as a community resource, that we are part of the community. Our collections, our archives, of course, the staff expertise, you know, we are here in service of the community. Museums are often not people's first thought when they're thinking about educational resources in the community. Sometimes we're not always the first thing that people think of. So by creating this kind of a collaborative experience, we hope that students will gain firsthand knowledge of how museums can support educational pursuits long after they have left the classroom.
You know, we use the term now, experiential learning, and what that really gets at is that how do you craft experiences for the students that furthers their growth that you just can't get within one discipline. And so we're really leaning into that concept of not just saying this is a real world example or this is a study of what someone else is doing, but how do they have to actually go from start to finish through a project. And that can be a very powerful way to make an impact for students.
And so the question, of course, would be, you know, why are we having them do a digital or a virtual project? Why aren't we just having them, which would also be experiential, why aren't we having them just create an exhibition that would be on view here at the museum or even on campus? Why are we doing this as part of the experiential learning? One of the things that was important for us is as museums continue to consider the concept of accessibility. So access was really important consideration. And museums really are pursuing all types of digital projects, including digital exhibitions, online collections access, and virtual programs. We've been trending in this direction for some years, but COVID definitely has sped up our trajectory into exploring more of these digital options. And museums are often limited by budget, by staff, by time. And a partnership like this helps us extend the museum's resources to develop these more cutting edge projects. So a virtual exhibit would allow the viewer to take a deeper dive into the subject from hopefully the comfort of their home or someplace else. And museum fatigue is a real thing and something that we think of when we are actually preparing a physical exhibition. We want people to engage and be excited and be interested, but we also don't want to exhaust them. We don't want to have so many things that it's overwhelming to them. So this digital view is an opportunity for, as Susan said, for people to take a deeper dive into the subject of LAUP, the Latin Americans United for Progress organization. They can take their time, they can look at the materials as much and as often as they would like. And it's just, again, a way to extend the learning into the real world.
Michelle mentioned, when you look at access, when you look at how you present the material, that is a huge piece for students to really have to look at what that means in an actual implementation. So when they have to consider diversity of perspective and they have to consider how someone is going to approach this exhibit, those are questions they're not often asked to do in a way that is going to actually come to fruition. So we're there to challenge them a little bit too in terms of thinking about their audience and thinking about how they present the material that they have. So we even have been doing some exercises in the class of just picking one artifact that's here from the exhibit. There's a Day of the Dead poster from activities, and we spent 10 minutes just on what are the details and why is this presented and where does this go and how would you explain that. So it's getting them to look in different ways when you really have to think about your audience and that you're putting a statement out to the community that you want to be a very inclusive and accessible way. We hope that they also see diversity of things that they can do outside of that. Michelle's mentioned that we want them to see they can be involved with the museum, involved in the community, but maybe even think about where they can go with their own workforce and with their own passions. I certainly have students with a very interesting range of passions who were attracted to take this course. And it's just thrilling to hear their dreams and where they're thinking of taking different pieces. And we hope that we inspire them to do that as well.
And even, of course, for museums, we're always looking for, new people to join museums. And I think a lot of, as museum staff, and I think a lot of people don't always think of museums as a potential career choice, even though there's so many things that you can study in college that will connect with what you can do in museums. People don't think of it right away. So if this is an opportunity, if we engage one student who thinks, oh my gosh, I might actually be interested in working in a museum, I really enjoyed this, that's a win. That's such a great opportunity. And museums are really looking for a younger workforce, a more diverse workforce. And so to be able to engage someone who might be interested in joining museums, that would be really exciting. Honestly, we would also be thrilled if they just saw that, again, this extends their learning, their opportunities as they leave the classroom, that they want to just become involved in museums, that they want to be a volunteer, or they want to be a board member, or that they want to be a financial supporter of a museum and what museums do. That's just exciting opportunity and, hopefully a result of this collaboration.
I'll be honest, if you had told me a few years ago that I'd be teaching this course and getting so excited about this project, I would not have had that on my radar screen, but it is just, we're only a few weeks into it and it's been so valuable and so exciting. So we have a video here. We're gonna switch screens for a second to share a bit about what Michelle is referring to in terms of exhibits.
And so the next side of this that I want to talk about is how we're transforming our artifacts, starting to look at them as opportunities to mediate conversations between strangers. And to give you an example, let's go outside the museum. How many people here own a dog? Okay, great. So you've all had this experience. You're out walking your dog in public and a stranger comes up and talks to you. And they're not really talking directly to you. They're sort of talking through the dog to you. The dog has become this kind of safe social object that mediates an encounter that otherwise wouldn't happen. So as a museum designer, I get really curious about this. Okay, how could we make museum artifacts more like dogs? I'm serious. How could we make them opportunities for conversations that otherwise otherwise wouldn't happen. Because you know what? The kinds of social experiences that people can have around museum objects are bigger than the ones we have around our dogs. When you're walking down the street, you don't just start having a conversation with a stranger about what it's like to be in the military, like these people are as they're looking at artwork. When you're in the mall, you don't have a conversation about racial inequity, as these teenagers are as they look at stacks of money representing income disparity between whites and blacks in the US. Museum artifacts have the power to expose the big conversations we have to be having about where we've been, where we're now, and where we're gonna go. And so again, at our museum, we think really carefully about how to bring to life the conversations that can happen around these objects, whether that's through a craft activity that gets people deeply involved with the work, or an activity that invites them to select which objects belong in the museum and which ones aren't relevant to our community. You know, some museums don't even give you a comfortable opportunity to sit down and talk about the objects on display. And we're really serious about this, so we even do things like design games that invite people to engage more with the work. And yes, all of these activities help people connect with the artifacts and learn more about them. But more importantly to me, they help them connect with people who are not like them and learn more about each other. Because we all know how a powerful social object can bridge a gap that otherwise we won't cross.
Okay, so I'm just going to explain a little bit about who that was. That was Nina Simon, and she is really kind of considered sort of a rock star, excuse me, in the museum world. She has really focused her career on how today's museums can be more relevant to their communities. And she's the former director of the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, and she is the author of the Participatory Museum and the Art of Relevance. And she writes a great blog called Museums 2.0. And she is also now the executive director of a nonprofit that she started called Of, By, For All. And so this is an excerpt from one of her TED Talks. And this is something that actually the students have watched in the class because we wanted them to hear about the importance of opening up the museum to all audiences and making museums more relevant. We want that to be the core of what they're thinking about as they're developing this digital exhibition. Is how do we make this more relevant? How do we open this up? So they did this, what was it, like the first class?
This is the first thing they did was watch the video, yes.
So we really did want to set this tone of inclusivity and relevancy as they start to consider this digital exhibition. So in addition, they've watched, have they watched another one of her talks? Yeah. And then they're also reading articles from, history museum publications, the Journal of Museum Education, as well as other periodicals to really jumpstart their critical thinking about translating and expanding the physical Laoub exhibit that's here in the museum into a digital museum.
Really having the Laoub exhibit as the one to work with on this project was just perfect. The timing was right, the project was right to fall in for this exhibit because it really encapsulates that concept that Nina Simon is getting across of seeing how the museum should be reflecting the community, and it allows the students to really be able to put into place those lessons of inclusion and how do you represent your community within the exhibit. So we're just having some very powerful conversations on unique artifacts and what that might mean and how that might be something that the students can relate to. And that is going to lead to their decisions of what they're going to select for their digital exhibits. They're not going to have endless space. They are going to be confined. And so the pieces really came together in terms of this exhibit being ready for this time and being able to bring together those lessons. The other pieces that allowed the implementation right now is that Hope College had been awarded a Mellon Foundation grant to actually inspire very similar community partnerships. And so Ricky Levine and I were very lucky to be awarded one of the first grants for that allows, the funding just allows our extra time into this, additional resources for the class. And it is a 2-year grant, so we will have money for student interns to continue this beyond this fall and to really see how we can enliven this project. So we're teaching it right now as an interdisciplinary class. The nice part about being at a liberal arts institution is they have cultural heritage requirements and diversity requirements. And so we fit right into that cultural heritage requirement for them.
And one of the other benefits is because they're doing this digitally, it is strengthening the digital foundation that the museum has, and also helps us to grow our digital collection. So you may not be familiar with our digital collection, which is through our website. You can search for objects on our website that are in the Holland Museum collection. And so this project is actually already starting to help us with our record keeping and allowing to expand and update some records. Our current digital collection featured on the website only documents actually a few thousand of our 90,000 plus collection. So we are constantly updating and improving the digital records. So one of the ways that we're doing that with the exhibit is that we actually ask the public to, using sticky notes, very simple, but when they're going through the exhibit, if they recognize a person in one of the photographs, or they know something else about one of the objects that we're presenting, or that we a document that's being on the wall that they know more about it, they could, take a sticky note, write information on that, and actually stick it on the wall of the exhibition. And so we're kind of crowdsourcing, some of our archival work. But that will help improve our record keeping. It will also help improve LAUP's record keeping, as we will be sharing that information with them as over the course of the exhibition. And this kind of interaction, this is kind of, at least in my, museum experience, this is kind of new. And it's really exciting to be able to, take this to the public and say, look, we're looking for information. Please share it with us in real time in the exhibition. This would have not been done. It would have been, you can have people write things down and stick it on the wall next to the objects. That just doesn't happen. But, this is, as we're becoming more community facing and more interactive, relaxed a little bit, which is great, so that we can really, there's a wealth of knowledge out there, and we can't collect it all. So, we're asking for help. The students are going to build on that and continue that, which is great. So we're really excited about that part of it. Wait for
The bells are, we're gonna let
The chimes.
the chimes go in the background here at the museum as we work with it. Right there at 10 o'clock.
Of course, please don't chime 10 times. Okay, we're gonna go. I have to work, think about this. So, just again, getting back to the students, and we really want the students to start working. They're starting from a foundation of the sections in the exhibition that our curator put together, thinking about these are the important big ideas that we want to get across to the audience when they come into the exhibition. So they're going to start from there. But we mentioned they're going to expand on them. They're going to take a deeper dive into the artifacts, the documents, the pictures, and the stories that are being represented. But we really do want to encourage the students to be critical and be honest about what they're finding out, the information that they're finding, and we want to present that. But we also need them to think about we want them to go deep, but we don't want them to go down a rabbit hole and lose the audience. So we want them to be thinking again about visitor outcomes. What do we want the visitors to come away with from this experience? We need it to be visitor centered. We need to think about what do they need. It's not about us, it's about them. What do we want? This is a process that we do in museums. What do we want our visitors to see, learn, think, feel, and do after they have had this educational experience? What do we want those outcomes to be? So how do you arrange the objects, the pictures, the text to get the visitor to that outcome? What is the point you want to get across? Again, we need to think about what does the viewer need and how do we stay true to the facts and the stories of Lau. The exhibition is not about us, not about the students, it's not about Hope College, it's not about the Holland Museum, it's about Lau. So we need to make sure that that stays foremost in their minds. To consider that subject, especially since this is a multicultural subject, that we need to think about how people are represented. We need to be sensitive to how we are telling these multicultural stories. So we want the students to think about, respect, positivity, and of course, accuracy.
The students have really embraced this. We're only on week 4 of the class, and after they watched the TED Talks, they came here and they had to look through it. Matter of fact, we have used the grant to pay for memberships for all of the students to be able to come as much as they want to a museum and grow that habit of being museum members. But they really related to it. Even though their first reaction was, well, it's kind of a small little room. I wasn't sure what to expect. They very much felt that the exhibit was intimate and they could relate to the people who were there. And the Hispanic students who are in the class, that it does really reflect the culture's values, and they were excited to see that and walk in there and feel that that voice was heard. And they really related to it as people's stories. And I found that interesting because there were certain artifacts. For example, in this picture, the white piece of paper there is the official certification of LAUP as a Michigan organization. I walked through it as an adult saying, that's great, that's part of that. The students latched onto that from the personal side of how cool must it have been that after they did all this work to decide to put together the framework of an organization to get that official piece of paper that they were there. And they really articulated how they felt as a person. And then, she mentioned that the Post-it notes are around. They are just enthralled with these Post-it notes as just at their age and how they relate to things. And they really felt like it helped pull them through the exhibit because they were just so curious to see how other people saw the exhibit. And what was that next thing, especially if it was a story. For example, there's a Post-it note where there's a picture of a young man who had been involved with something with LAUP, and someone put a Post-it note about what he did after he went to U of M. They are fascinated with that. They want to meet this kid. They want to find out these people's stories. So the fact that it was made in such a way that made it personal and reflected that multicultural, they are very much relating to and wanting to learn about those stories. And I love that they were able to say that these are the people in my community. And it felt like a scrapbook for them. And that was not the students who are Latinx saying that. That was other members of the class saying, this is Holland and I'm excited about this. And what a way to kind of capture that. And at the same time, what a wonderful way for the museum to be hearing feedback from our 20-year-olds as to what they're relating to and what they're seeing in the museum. So it's refreshing to see it through their eyes as we have this conversation.
Well, and as a museum, we often don't get that kind of really immediate reaction to an exhibition, and especially from this particular age group. We often don't hear a lot from them. They're a harder demographic for us to engage, and so we don't hear a lot from them, and so we don't really know what they're thinking. And I love the idea that they thought that the exhibit looked like a scrapbook, that it had that intimacy and sort of a hominess feeling to it, that they just enjoyed being in the space, and that they really loved the idea of the notes and to be able to interact with it directly like that. And I agree with you about that one document. Yes, it's an important part of telling the story of Lau, but I didn't think it would have that kind of an impact. And so we don't always know that as a museum. We don't know what really speaks to people unless they tell us. And so it's really great for us to hear that piece really made an impact.
Right. Yeah, they are. It's so much fun to hear them. Although the next step they've decided is that it needs to include food. So sometimes they're stereotypical 20-year-olds and they're trying to convince me we need authentic food for class. But where are we now going with this? So the course is happening right now throughout the fall semester, and we are framing this that we will have digital exhibits live in mid-December. December 14th from 3 to 5 is their final exam time, and we will have live exhibits. But as I mentioned, it is a 2-year project. So part of our job is going to have to keep the students within a framework so they have something that we can start with at these exhibits. But we really then want to spend the spring and summer with some student interns exploring how to go deeper and what is next. I had some wonderful conversations with LAUP and their members, and the piece they really want to capture are more of that oral history. And we're just starting to say, how do we use the next step to capture some of these conversations with the members who were there and current members of where we are with advocacy steps. And we will be offering the course again next fall, but we're still exploring what that means. Is there more that we will work with LAUP? Will it be time to look at an exhibit from another diverse area within the community? We're going to see, we're still leaving that question open. Then putting on the hat as being involved with the museum and speaking with Michelle and Ricky, what are the next pieces for the museum for their digital exhibit? Michelle touched on that a bunch earlier, but we have brought in here within Holland so that we have more digital materials that are going to be referenced across the world, and folks will see this as a resource here for everything that might be at the exhibit. So that's our adventure. I'm going to stop sharing for questions here, and would love to hear what you're thinking and where it's going. And we thank you for listening through the chimes as well, as we're right here in the museum.
Great, thanks you guys. I don't have anything in the chat, so this is a great size group for unmuting yourself and making comments or questions, so feel free to do so, you guys.
Kind of off the subject, but how is the road construction affecting the
Well, it's definitely affecting us. I don't know if it's affecting attendance so much, but I'm sure it must be, because it's more challenging to get here and to just, get into the museum. One way it is affecting us is that we've had some issues with artifacts. We've had to, if you haven't been in our Dutch galleries, we had to take off the doors and the drawer of a cabinet the back of the cabinet is against the front wall of the museum. We've had to remove some of the doors and other parts of it because of the vibrations from the construction. Wow. We were noticing gaps. And so we took the parts that could be removed. It's a very large cabinet. We couldn't remove the entire thing from the gallery, but we took parts of it off. It will go back to normal when the construction's over. We've also had to take some paintings down off the walls because the vibrations from the construction were actually shaking the building. So we removed some paintings for a little while for safekeeping, but they're back now. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep. Couple of comments. Number one, I thought this was great. And one of the things that I do know is, there's at least one exhibit coming up in October on the Holland Fire, and another small one, in the lobby. Are either of these going to be incorporated into the class?
Right now, the class is suffering from too many good ideas.
Okay.
And, so they're all great ideas. I'm feeling the instructor in me going, I've got to get the class to a final product within the semester. So we're really trying to document what we're doing, see how this might be captured so that when there's other exhibits moving down the line that we can work on, that there's just some great examples to work with. But yeah, our current problem is so many good ideas. Let's add this, let's add these interviews, and they're wonderful ideas, so keep them coming. But we're going to try to get the students to a starting project And then there can be projects that can grow from there. They've got a wonderful history of interns and intern projects that have a little more.
There's just so much potential. This kind of project and collaboration and digitization of exhibits. So to expand the display, the lobby display, or the display that we're going to be doing on the Holland Fire, able to probably have capacity, time, resources to do that with everything that we have. Because obviously there's so much of it, but there's so much potential to do. Now since we're starting to unlock a little bit more about.
Uh-oh, we lost him. Again, darn it. Hold on.
They are very excited as well to see this as a foundation project too. So they have been very supportive to say, how can they help with understanding what is the digital backbone that might be able to have to be back there? They've already come to visit the class. We're going to have the class doing some of the work of the very detailed digitization of all the meta information behind it. So we're hoping to see that we set it up in a way that we can move forward with a foundation for future projects and not always having to go back to the beginning of how do we want to do this project? How do we want to do that project? Is the website able to handle growth? We want to set it up so that it can grow from here.
Right. And I really do think the students actually can teach us a lot about what are the possibilities with digital, with all of this technology, because they just understand it a lot more than we do. They just jump right in. They have no issues with it. We were talking about this whole idea of the sticky notes. We talked about, could that be something in the actual digital exhibit? Could there be a way that people could actually like submit like a digital sticky note of a way? And I'm sure that they're trying now to figure out how to make that happen.
Oh,
so,
yeah, they've got lots of ideas.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna have to bring them in too, I think, or capture it. Don't want to say that.
Awesome. A question from the chat is that a few years ago, Herrick Library had an amazing exhibit of stories and bios from the Hispanic Latinx community. Would you know where those artifacts are now? And if they are available, they would be a great source to expand the information and outreach.
I do actually know where those are. And they are still at the library. The new director of their digital lab, which is in the lower level of the library, called Groundworks. His name is Daniel. And he and I were having a conversation about ways that we could collaborate with Groundworks over at the library. And he mentioned this archives of interviews with the Latinx community. And he is working on getting them, I think, back up on the library website. In fact, they may already be there. So you can actually check the library, the Herrick Library's website. But he is interested using the Groundworks lab and all of their equipment to do more of that, do other oral history projects. And so yes, it is an opportunity for collaboration with another community organization.
Great. The comment back is that that's great news. Anybody else? Kind of quiet out there. I love that. It's really exciting for me and to hear how much excitement behind the project from students. That's fantastic. They're not just being passive, and that's awesome.
They're a fun little class. You know, when you throw a new idea like this out at college students, there's the fear of, is anybody want to take this class? Who are we going to attract to this class? Because we just kind of did a little flyer and threw it out there, and I sent notes to several advisors and tried to refer the class. And it is students from a range of different backgrounds of what they're majoring in, and it's a very diverse class ethnically as well.
Awesome.
And so it's just kind of fun to hear how they come to it. And they're starting to open up. You know, the first couple days was the very stereotypical straight ahead. So So even the pictures that Michelle showed, we don't sit in tables anymore. I've reminded them that furniture can move. And so I now have them trained that they come in and they immediately make pods of tables so that they have to be sitting, you know, with other folks and having conversations. And so now we're opening up. And like I said, now we got the jokes about the food and other places we can go. So they're starting to trust each other to get to the point that they're going to have to be as we get to some of the conversations of what does this artifact mean and how are they presenting it?
Right.
They're going to have to be willing to have those conversations, and we're on that track. So I owe a lot to them because they have really embraced it.
It's beautiful. I love that.
Wendy and I will be going back to the class a few more times, I'm sure, as they get closer to finishing the project, because at different stages, because we wanted to go back when they're really starting to pull together, you know, their information and their conceptual ideas of how this is going to come together, to, again, you know, to look at it from the museum standpoint is like I said in the presentation, it's very easy to get really enthusiastic and go down sort of that rabbit hole, and then not being able to be sort of objective. So you need an outside person to really come in and look at it and go, okay, this is great, but you're giving too much and people can't take in that much. So we need to, you know, curate it. That's where the word comes from. We need to curate it. We need to narrow it down a little bit. And so we're looking forward to going back and being able to talk with them and see what they're doing and how they're developing it. And
do you think there will a partnership or more intentional ideas might be shared with like Kreisinga here on campus, for example, for exhibits?
You know, that's really been the exciting part, is how many different folks are having ideas and wanting to, whether it's the library and Kreisinga and other folks, there's a lot of potential out there. And I think this is going to expand in interesting ways forward. So yeah, I would love to speak with Charles Mason a bit more. He's a great guy, and what they're doing there. So we're just finding these different pieces as we move forward.
Okay, I have a couple of things in the chat. Ann Waller was just saying that there's so many possibilities down the road for digital access in the community at festivals, community marketing schools, et cetera. Very exciting. And then Lori is saying that she has 2 exchange students from non-Hispanic countries. Do you have a way for high school kids to interact? Is it inclusive to other ethnicities?
So a couple pieces there. We do have plans that we want. Part of the reason of making sure there is this final piece at the end is sooner rather than later, we want to build a curriculum around it to get it into the high schools so that teachers can be having these community conversations. And so that is another thing that I'm hoping the intern over this fall and spring, the spring and summer can put together and make sure that it's there with the schools. And I really appreciate the question of are we looking at it from a way that can be inclusive from all ethnicities, and I hope we get there. I hope that that's something that we're able to not lose sight of, and as the museum folks help us with that curation process and that awareness process, that it's something that sends that message, as you are saying, Lori, that we want to represent the community. We want to have this feel like we're reaching out. And that's why we're keeping it open as to what the focus is next year. Do we look at another aspect of our community and build that in? So I hope we don't lose that sight, and please remind us if we do, because we hope not to.
Okay, awesome. She's also asking if there are any volunteer opportunities, because those exchange students also need volunteer hours.
Okay.
Absolutely. We're always looking for volunteers, you know, whether it's just helping out at a program or actually spending more time in the museum. The contact person at the museum is Lauren Harvey. She is our education and volunteer coordinator. And her email is Lauren, Loren, at hollandmuseum.org, but you can also find her email and contact information on the Holland Museum website. But she would be the person to contact and can get them started.
Great, thanks.
And I famously say that youth can volunteer here. They should be welcome to do that. My children have volunteered here and found it very rewarding. So I try to remind people all ages should be coming in and volunteering. So
absolutely.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes.
Jane?
Is it me? I'm just putting this in the chat.
Okay. Will HASP members be able to tour the museum? Lee Pavich is helping some of the docents
Right.
write up a perspective for a HASP class at the Capon House and Settlers House for April. Oh, interesting.
Okay, wait, could you repeat the question?
Will HASP members be able to tour the museum? I don't know if you know who Lee Pavich is, but she's a member on one of our committees, is working, is helping some of the docents from the museum write up a possible HASP course at the Capone House and Settlers House for April.
Oh, absolutely. We can set up a tour of the museum. We can set up a tour of the Capon and Settlers House. So yes, absolutely. And we would love to have Lee come, and actually maybe we could schedule a session for the docents just here at the museum and have Lee come and talk. So yes, there's all kinds of possibilities. So get in contact with us, Jane.
Great.
So,
And if folks have not been to the live exhibit, it is a wonderfully powerful space to kind of go through, and I hope you all do get a chance to come on over.
yes. And in fact, before we go, I mean, if there's any other questions, we'd be happy to take other questions, but we're going to share our screen again because I have to make a shameless plug for some upcoming museum events.
I think
Oh,
Jane
sure.
had a question first.
Did you have another question?
Jane, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't think she did. But also, you guys, if there's a link or a flyer or something like that that you want to email me to hasp@hope.edu, I can put the information for the exhibit or any events on my community board here. So
Good.
Okay, I can send you lots of links from
Okay.
for the Holland Museum website, but I did want to just mention we do have some programs coming up. In fact, we have a program tomorrow night. And actually it's a new program here at the museum, and well, it'll be online, it'll be Zoom. The program is called Tales from the Archives. This is our first installment of this new series, and so it's 7 o'clock tomorrow night. You can still go to the Holland Museum website and register. You need to register through Eventbrite, and I will send you the link to the Zoom. But it will be featuring local historians Jeffrey Reynolds and Dave Brooks. They're going to be discussing their research that they've been using the museum archives for. Jeffrey will be talking about Holland's contribution to building war vessels, ships during World War II. And then Dave Brooks will be discussing the genealogy and family history of Sarah Tolk, who was the only person to lose her life in the 1871 Holland Fire. So again, you can register for that through the Holland Museum website as a free program. In connection with the Holland Fire, as Rick also mentioned, we will be having a display of artifacts from that survived the fire and telling more stories. We will be having a program on Saturday, October 9th from 1 to 4. It'll be included with museum admission. We will be doing walking tours around Holland and at 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and we'll be doing some readings from firsthand accounts of people who survived the fire. We'll be doing that at 2:15, but you can also just come see the display. It's included with the visit to the museum is included with admission. If you would like to go on a walking tour, that's $5, additional $5 to go on the walking tour, and you can get all the information on our website. Thursday, October 7th, another Zoom program. This is a family program called Meant to Be, Loving Down Syndrome. We'll be featuring a local author, Caitlin Herringer, who wrote the book I Am Me. She'll be reading the story, and then we'll be doing a discussion and having a family-friendly activity afterwards. And that is a Zoom program. And then obviously the LAOP exhibit, we hope you will come and see it. Now that you've heard a little bit more about it, please come down and visit the exhibit. It will be open through January 17th. And finally, you can support the Holland Museum by purchasing a ticket to our next virtual fundraiser, which is celebrating the Klein Hexel family from Dykstra Funeral Home. Attendees receive a custom gift bag filled with local specialties and have an opportunity to learn about this exceptional family. Proceeds raised will support the museum's education and outreach work. So you can purchase your ticket through the museum website by October 7th. So we encourage you to do that as well. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to plug all of these things. There's a lot coming up at the museum.
Yeah, thank you.
And you are welcome to reach out to us with any questions or further information about everything. But yeah, we've got a few other minutes if folks have any other questions or comments.
Could I put in a plug for Spark Lab? I was a little late.
No, absolutely. Our Spark Lab, yes. Spark Lab is
Well, and I
open.
was- For a Christmas gift, family membership makes a wonderful, wonderful Christmas present. And especially for families that have young children who would enjoy the Spark Lab. And could you talk a little bit about it?
Sure.
'Cause I
Thank
know
you,
Susan,
Jane. Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Jane. That's a great idea. And she's absolutely right. The Spark Lab is our Spark Lab Smithsonian. That is our interactive space for audiences of all ages, but particularly our family audience. It is open starting, actually, we're changing our hours just a bit for the school, since we're in school now. Starting the 24th of September, our hours will switch. On Fridays, will be open from 1 to 5. Saturdays, 11 to 3, and Mondays, 1 to 5. So that we can get our after school audiences in. But it's a great space to come in. We put out materials, you get to experiment, explore the ideas to create, might give you an idea, but you can create anything pretty much that your imagination brings you to. It's just a great place to come and play and explore. We have activities for really young kids and books, as well as most of the activities are for ages about 6 to 12. But honestly, the adults have as much fun as the kids do, especially playing with the vertical wind tunnel. So you can come in and just experiment and have fun. So we encourage you to come in. It's included with museum admission, but like you said, if you get a family membership, as Jane mentioned, you get in for free and you can come enjoy Spark Lab as much as you want.
I want to just comment on the all ages. It would be a great space if anybody has a group that they want to just do some icebreaker with, or just a fun activity. I work with the summer programs at Hope. I brought my summer staff over just as one of their get to know each other activities. And yeah, I got a little competitive on some of the things they were designing. So it really is, it may be for the kids, but it is set up in such a creative way that it kind of sparks that interest of all different ages, which is why it's aptly named. So, yep. Yeah. Anyone else?
Great. All right. Well, thank you again so much for having us. It was really wonderful to see so many of you and be able to talk about this really exciting collaboration and what we're doing.
Yeah,
so.
And we appreciate the support, and we hope that you're interested in following the progress here as what the students accomplish, and then all the other connections we hope we make through this.
Thank you for.
It would definitely be fun to have a follow-up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sarah, you want to close us?
I just wanted to say it was an exciting and wonderful program, very interesting, and has created a wonderful access for students, not only within the community, but with their own learning and trying to build that relationship, which I think has been lacking in education for many, many, many years. So thank you for pursuing all of that and undertaking it. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone.
Have a good day.
Have a great rest of the day.